What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripes show. How you doing, Scott? Morning.
I'm doing well. I just burned the living shit out of my tongue with this coffee that I forgot I just brewed. I was thinking it was the coffee I brought to work, but I forgot that I just made a new pot and it was very hot. But other than my tongue being burned off, I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
It's good. It's the period of the off season where spring training is close, but it's not imminent and nothing is happening. It's just crickets, and everyone is frantically checking Twitter or whatever, refreshing Google News to
I don't
see
think
if the
anybody
Yankees
frantically
win.
is doing it anymore. I think it's become more of a like, okay, let's just check Twitter. Okay,
Mhm.
it's more of like, in the process of doing it. But there's no emergency things happening unless you're Scott Boras dealing with a Carlos Correa new team and new contract. But
We
but
were reading a
oh,
funny tweet.
before I forgot, real quick, I'm sorry. Happy New Year, Andrew.
It's fine. Yeah, today's fair game. I mean, you already said it to me, so that's
That sucks.
you're
Yeah, I
saying
forgot
it
about that.
twice,
I
which
forgot.
it's like, you already said it, so why are you doing that? But
Right.
yeah, today's fair game.
Okay.
I don't mind today.
I forgot when
Anyone
the
who talks to me
I
for the
forgot
first
when the
time
date
this year,
was. To be honest,
that was only
I
last
forgot
week.
where your arbitrary line in the sand is.
It's only you agreed to it. It's only been 1 week since we talked about that, so you're still good.
Okay.
We were reading a funny tweet before we started recording that like Carlos Correa signed for like 30 years and $800 million this offseason combined, and he's back on the Twins. I just think with him, if we'll just briefly touch on the Correa situation. I don't know what it is about him. I obviously know it's the medicals, but I think he's just got a stink on him from the whole Astros stuff and the fact that he just came across as an a-hole. And I, I don't know. Maybe it's karma. Maybe it's me just being happy that this is happening to him. Part of me can't help but think part of the reason this is happening to him is because of how he handled that situation.
I don't know. I feel like it's from a baseball perspective, and the guys who are trying to either sign him or not are not looking at that. I mean, how can you honestly? How can you look at that at this point if you're a team and you get down the road as far as these other teams have by offering the 10-year plus contract and then going back on it at that point, if you're offering that contract, all of the things that are intangible or off the field that have nothing to do with the physical body should be buttoned up at that point as far as in your mind and decision making. So I can't imagine that actually going into the decision making this far in the process, but there are the flags for his medical are interesting, and I don't know if it's buyer's remorse with it, as much
I think that's
as
what
much
it is.
dollars
Yeah,
on
it's like I don't
the table there is, but
the
it's kind of
Giants
crazy.
the Giants, this is the timeline of it. The Giants thought for like 10 minutes they had Arson Judge, and then they don't have Arson Judge. And then they pivot to Carlos Correa and offer him basically the Judge money. And then I think as the shine wears off, right? You wake up the next morning from the hangover and you look at your text messages and you're like, holy crap, what did I do last night? How do I fix this? How do I get out of this? And that's how they got to the medical situation. Now, I don't understand how the Mets, knowing all of that happened, then made that offer to him, and then we're not okay with the exact medical situation that the Giants were not okay with. That is just classic Mets. But I think at the end of the day, that's ultimately a good thing for Mets fans. I think when they look back on this, they're going to be happy they didn't sign Carlos Correa to 11 years or whatever they ended up offering him.
Ah,
And right?
yeah,
Because
I guess so. Maybe. I mean, if the medical, if they're actually something that's going to affect him, and that's kind of the whole thing is that like you're seeing these red flags that might come up down the road. I mean, it's all
and I'm
it's
sure you could find this
speculative.
about any professional
Sure.
athlete, right? Anybody who's been playing a sport and grinding their ass off for 20 years, getting to a point where they're a free agent. Like, I'm sure you can find something like, oh, he pulled a hammy when he was in a senior in high school. It's like, whoa, is that going to come up again?
Yeah.
So you could always find something. But my point on just Correa being a D-bag is like, maybe part of these teams and whoever's making these decisions is like, you know what, I'm not going to let this guy slide on this.
Maybe. I think the reason I don't so much look at the Met situation and see egg on the face at that point, because I think really what that means is they were able to swoop in offer the deal that they felt comfortable with, assuming their doctors cleared it. But if they didn't do that, then they wouldn't have had the opportunity to, have their medical staff take a look at everything. So I think it was one of those like, hey, let's bookmark this. Let's put a placeholder on it so that if we do feel comfortable, we can, we can proceed with it. And then obviously they didn't feel comfortable either with the medicals. But I think that was more of like a, hey, let's just get in line because every team is going to have an opportunity to sign this guy, but let's get in line so that we could get a closer look. That's kind of what it felt like. And they were comfortable with the dollars.
So what do you think will go down as the better era in Mets history? The Carlos Correa era or the Carlos Beltran as manager era? Which one's the better era?
I think Carlos Beltran had a longer stay, probably more impact on that clubhouse, probably had some more phone calls and possibly gave a little bit of instructional value to the system and what they're looking for. Whereas Carlos Correa didn't step foot in the building. He did get a hat for his dog or something. I saw some post where there was like, the dog was I don't remember if it was a dog or a kid, which is terrible, but one of them, someone close to his family was wearing Mets gear.
I part of me hopes that Correa like put a deposit, like a non-refundable deposit on a New York City apartment or something for like $1 million that he just can't get back at this point.
Yeah,
so
that would be good.
Yeah, that's a crazy situation. And before we were recording, we were talking about the fact that Manny Machado can opt out of his contract with the Padres after this year. And he signed $300 million over 10 years, so $30 million AAV. Massive contract at the time, still massive contract. But if we look at what some of these other guys are signing for, and like if you use Devers as a comp for AAV, what was Devers' AAV with the Red Sox? It was like $33 or $32 million, something like that. So not too far off. But Machado's going to be 31 years old, and he could hit the free agent market as the top third baseman. He'll get more than 5 years, $30 million AAV, which is what will be remaining on his Padres contract. He'll get 8 years. He'll get 9 years maybe, because everyone's signing until 40 years old. So you got to sign Manny Machado until 40 years old.
Yeah, that's interesting that he could do that because he's very much still an impact player. He's a whiz with the glove, and the bat is still very much potent and translates. So that's really interesting. I think if the Yankees could get back on that, and that slides in nicely, they're going to need a third baseman. That's interesting. That is very interesting because I think when we were looking at when he was a free agent, when it was the Harper Machado sweepstakes at that point, we were looking at Machado, and it's still actually very true, is that he's the best fit for what the team needs. So you slide him into a team that does need a consistent third base. You're not losing anything with the glove, going from a Donaldson to a Machado, and you're massive impact with the bat, massive upgrade. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I'd just be surprised if the Yankees end up signing another guy for that much money and that many years into his 40-year-old season after they just did it with Judge. That would kind of surprise me, but it will be interesting that he'll be on the market with seemingly the Yankees having the hole at third base. I mean, you could argue they have a hole now at third base, but definitely with Donaldson off the books. So
Logan, you got something real quick?
Yeah, I have a question. Do you guys think, so he's been on the Padres for 4 years. Those 4 years, if he was a Yankee, do you think the results of any of the seasons are different?
Very possibly, honestly. Again, going back to the reason why the actual reason why the Yankees did not continue to lose was offensive production and offensive consistency, and he's a guy that absolutely levels up in that area. So, for sure, I mean, you can't say 100% either way, but yes, I think he significantly helps the lineup turn over and get more production consistently in the playoffs. Yes.
Well, think about it.
Let's go season by season.
They've been going through third baseman. That's what I was going to say, Andrew.
2019, 2019, Gio was really good. Okay, Gio was a big surprise in 2019. Yes. So 2019, I mean, I don't remember what Machado's numbers were with the Padres in 2019. I'm sure they were better than Gio because he's Manny Machado, but
he had a down year his first year. I remember he had a down year his first year for his standards.
Yes, 796 OPS.
Yeah.
He hit 32 home runs, 85 RBIs.
So I don't know that 2019 is any different.
Again,
22
we're looking at regular season numbers.
don't
You
know,
throw that
though.
man in the middle of a
Of
postseason
course, it
lineup, and
changes.
it's
Of course,
totally
it changes the
different.
lineup. Yeah.
Brett Gardner was batting third in that ALCS. That's my rebuttal to that.
So, but like they're still winning the division. Maybe they're in a better position to beat the Astros in the ALCS. Who knows? 2020, I think the team, after a good start to that short season, just completely fizzled out that year. And by the time the playoffs rolled around, they were not playing good. And 2020, who the hell knows?
They took the race to 5 games though. And Manny Machado,
yeah, and didn't they lose
third in MVP voting?
Yeah.
Look, every single year, I promise you that Manny Machado gives them the better chance. There's no doubt about it.
Of course, he gives them a better chance. I'm just like, there's no, and it's impossible to say like, oh, you add Manny Machado to this team and like then they win the World Series.
No, you can't say that. But what you do, what you can say is when you get into the playoffs, a bat like Manny Machado, who is one of 3 superior top bats at third base, that their odds are significantly increased, and their lineup is significantly better. So the answer,
I think if anything, 22
yes.
probably has the biggest difference because Donaldson was a complete black hole in the lineup in the postseason. Everyone cringed when he walked to the plate, and if that's Manny Machado stepping to the plate instead of Josh Donaldson, you're still going to get the elite defense that Donaldson was giving you. So yeah, I think 2022 from just a lineup balance and just an opposing pitcher having to battle through the lineup and battle through another tough hitter. Yeah, that's a huge impact between Donaldson to Machado there.
Cool. Yeah, bring him on. Bring Manny Machado to the Yankees.
Cool story.
I was that guy. I was that guy in 2018, 19. I wanted him very badly.
Oh, I wanted him too.
You guys
I think but again, they chose Giancarlo Stanton. That's what happened.
Do you guys remember?
Also had they could have had.
Do you guys remember the day they signed DJ LeMahieu? And everyone was freaking out, being like, "You sign an infielder, and it's not Manny Machado." Start like comparing what DJ LeMahieu is doing versus like what Manny Machado could do. And now it's like at that point, it was an apples to oranges comparison anyway. It's a 2-year deal that they gave DJ versus the 10-year deal they gave Machado, second base, whatever. It was just the fact that they signed an infielder and it wasn't Manny Machado. People were freaking out. Obviously, DJ worked out. So before we get today's episode, I promise we're not going to just like spend 45 minutes talking about what the hell they're going to do in left field because I feel like we've done that a while. But we're going to run down some of the top 10 Yankees prospects, specifically the names that are not talked about and not really known as much, which are the top prospects, Volpe, Dominguez, Peraza. But before we do that, Ilya, you want to just touch on a couple of the other resolutions, because we did resolutions last week. Some people commented on some of the posts with some that they thought we missed.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of people that were in support of not playing New York after losses. That was the biggest interaction we got, and a lot of people didn't know that they did that. And a lot of people wanted to get rid of Donaldson and Hicks. That's an easy one there. But
that's like I'm going to lose weight this year.
Yeah, easy to say, hard to do.
I'm going to go to the gym every day. Resolution of baseball is get rid of Donaldson and Hicks.
Yeah. We had a couple comments on Instagram that I'll read here. The first one from James Scott 897. He said Trevino needs to even out his success versus lefties to righties.
I actually don't know those splits. If Logan, you want to grab those splits real quick, because that's not something that I feel like we have ever talked about.
I'll say something about that. I don't care what he does offensively. I've been very consistent with this message for 5 years. Just give me the elite defense, the elite framing, the elite pitch selection, and working with the pitchers. I don't. No. I don't care. I don't care what he does offensively.
The offense was nice in the first half.
Yeah, it was nice. Okay, it was nice, and that's exactly what I'll say every time I see offense from Jose Trevino. It's nice. That's
why he was an
cherry
all-star
on top.
You don't get voted to the all-star team just because you're an elite framer. You get voted because you're an elite defensive catcher and you're pretty good offensively too.
Awesome. Really cool. I don't care if he's an all-star either. I just want him to be an elite defensive catcher. That's it.
Scott, I have to say I agree with you, but this is interesting, and I never looked at this. So versus righties last year, he was 233 average, 616 OPS, 7 home runs, 34 RBIs in 266 at bats. He hit 304 with an 882 OPS against lefties last year.
Okay, so I think James wants him to hit 304 against righties too.
So real quick, to
that
James'
would be great.
point, what I think is very valuable and certainly, you know, goes into this conversation. If he can be more consistent on both sides of the plate, that puts him behind the plate more often. So that's
It was only
the one part I will agree with. If you can be more consistent at the plate, then you're going to get more playing time and help the team defensively as well, and they won't have to platoon as much.
It was only 69 plate appearances. Nice.
Nice.
But we
Ilya,
I
you
think
didn't
that
say
the
nice,
Yankees.
say nice.
Yeah, you didn't say nice. They used Higgy a lot against lefties last year because they believe that Higgy was superior against lefties. So that is interesting though. Like, do they? I mean, I know we've talked about this before. Do they dump Higgy and go with Rortvedt, lefty? Who they like?
Rortvedt was never a bat. He'll never be a bat. He'll never.
He was going to be the
offensive
backup though.
Yeah, but he's not an offensive guy. So, like, we're talking about the offense being the difference there. Who do you want, Rortvedt or a guy that knows the ins and outs of the system and the pitchers and has the comfort? I want Higgy.
I agree, but also their plan was going to be Rortvedt and Higgy, lefty righty platoon.
Sure,
that was the plan. So they could pivot away from Higgy and do it with Trevino and Rortvedt. They could. I'm not saying they will.
I mean,
we'll see. It'll take a
I
little.
think it'll be. If we see Rortvedt a little bit this year, I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him a little bit.
Why? There'll be a third catcher. What are we going to see? When are you going to? You're going to see him because of an injury, maybe.
I just want to see what he can do.
Okay, but you can't carry 3 catchers.
I know you're not going to carry 3 catchers, but so Trevino, I think, wore down last year. I think they played him.
So send Trevino on a vacation, even if he doesn't make the All-Star break. Just send him on a vacation in the middle of the year and bring up.
Well, I think what they're going to do is they're going to even out the playing time between Higgy and Trevino more in the first half, and I think they didn't last year because Trevino exploded and he was hitting and he was amazing defensively, and then he started catching Garrett Cole even. So I think like they just played him a lot more than was planned, and I think that could have contributed to his second half decline a little bit. So yeah, if you got to give a guy a little bit of a break, I'm okay. Like we've been talking about, the regular season doesn't mean anything. Let's see what Ben Rortvedt can do for a little while. Biceps.
That's fine, but it does, consistency to build up to a certain point with your pitching staff. The catcher's not in a position I really want to mess around with. And look, the other piece of Trevino potentially, not doing as well in the second half is the guy just hasn't had that much action in his career either. So he's got a full year now under his legs, or his legs are accustomed to a full year. So you could see him just being acclimated better to this season and being able to sustain it and just change some ways that he maintains, change a little of his training. Like there are some things that he can tighten up towards the offseason to help him sustain into the future, knowing that he has a significant role. I mean, the guy was on a plane going from one team to another team 2 days before the season. So there's a lot more consistency in his life that he can prepare for, which I think is going to be really good. Seeing how he acclimated as fast as he did last year, I'm excited to watch him, but he certainly deserves that job and to be out there as much as possible.
Ilya, we cut you off after the first sentence.
It was worth talking about. Yeah, so James Scott also said Donaldson needs to rewind things back one season. Now, if we're rewinding Donaldson, let's go back 8 to when he's MVP.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
Okay.
I don't understand one
Father
season.
Time doesn't really allow us to rewind very often, unfortunately.
And then he said Stanton needs to pace himself for the second half.
Was that an issue last year?
No, I think we kind of fixed it last year, didn't we?
I mean, Stanton just gets hurt, so he's going to get hurt. Stanton's going to go on the AL this year. Just accept it.
Yeah, as long as he's ready for the playoffs and geared up for it, that's it.
Right.
And then we had one more comment here from T Pelio 12. He's asking Glaber to stop being lazy. He asked for Hicks and Donaldson to get rid of the violent swings. He wanted some consistency from Stanton as well. He said, Bader, pick up where you left off. And probably the most attainable one, is for DJ to cut his toe off already.
Just cut the toe off and move forward.
Just
DJ's
rid of
like, DJ's the type of player who's like, so toe's going to be a problem. I'm going to eliminate the problem and be ready to go. So yeah, thank you guys for commenting. I think we ended up doing 17 resolutions, so we hit on a bunch of them. So there weren't many more for people to left to talk about, but yeah, Donaldson and Hicks, obviously the biggest ones. Scott, I got a question for you. I got an answer for you. Why did you start drinking Athletic Greens?
Because I wanted to jumpstart my mornings and be healthier. To be honest, I wanted to make sure that I was had sustained energy, just like Jose Trevino in the season.
Maybe that's the key. Jose Trevino needs to add Athletic Greens AG1 to his diet so he can sustain throughout the season. Yeah, I mean, obviously Athletic Greens sent us product, so that's why we started drinking it. But I definitely have continued drinking it. I've gotten into the routine. It is a great way to start the day. It is a daily supplement that you're supposed to drink every single day. It's packed with 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food-sourced ingredients, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. It supports mental clarity and alertness. I've gone through some trouble with Harrison sleeping over the past. The holidays just wrecked kids' sleep. Like, I'm sure you dealt this with Kemp. Like, every single day you're traveling somewhere new, it's a different bedtime. Naps have been awful. So I was cracking open the Athletic Greens every single morning to keep me feeling right. It promotes gut health with pre and probiotics. It can give you better sleep quality and recovery, and it boosts your energy. Each serving of AG1 contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial flavoring. It tastes great too. And it's affordable, especially if you're going out and buying supplements and vitamins individually. You're going to be spending a ton of money. There's a cool story when we met with, I met with an Athletic Greens rep before they started sponsoring the show. And there's a cool story about the founder who was going through some health problems, and his doctor prescribed him a vitamin regime that was going to cost him like $300 a week or something. And he's like, I can't sustain this just on vitamins. So he looked into how do I get all of this for a cheaper price. And
it also takes a lot of time. It's time consuming, working through all those vitamins. I've done that. I've played that game. This is much easier. You could get the single serve packets. You take a scoop out of the jar, and it's very simple. You could even set that thing up for the night before and then just add water. Mm-hmm. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, it's easy and efficient. And Athletic Greens has over 7,000 5-star reviews, and it's trusted by athletes and health experts around the world. Go to athleticgreens.com/pinstripes for a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs. Again, athleticgreens.com/pinstripes. Thank you to Athletic Greens for supporting the show, and appreciate anyone who goes out and checks out the product with our link. Prospects. Let's talk about them. So we know the top 10 Yankees prospects are Volpe, Dominguez, Peraza, Wells, Pereira, Sweeney, Spencer Jones, Will Warren, Clayton Beeter, and Luis Gil. A lot of those names
it's pipeline, right?
MLB pipeline. Yep. Top 10 in the Yankee system. Volpe, Dominguez, Peraza, everybody knows. And Luis Gil, people know about because he's pitched in the majors. But the rest of the guys, I feel like you might recognize the names, but you don't know a ton about them. So we thought it would be fun to go through each of these players. What's their ETA? What's the scouting report on them and stuff like that. So the first one, the number 4 Yankees prospect, is Austin Wells. We had Austin Wells on the podcast way back when, didn't we?
Yeah, I think so. We've had, I think, all, if not. Maybe we missed one catcher that they drafted. So I believe so.
I don't remember what year we had Austin Wells on the podcast.
It was the year they were drafted. It was your draft year.
Well, he was drafted twice by the Yankees. So I don't remember if it was 2018 or if it was 2020.
Time is a flat circle, my friend.
Either way, he was drafted twice by the Yankees. I believe it was 2020 when he was drafted in the first round. He's 23 years old. His ETA, according to MLB Pipeline, is 2023 this year.
They're pretty aggressive on those timelines for a few of these guys.
Especially with the Yankees. I feel like you need to add a year for Yankees prospects because they always slow play them.
Well, and I think it's also saying when they believe they will be ready, not necessarily when they would be, when they predict them to be coming up. Yeah.
Right. So Fangraph's scouting report on him And again, these are on a 20 to 80 scale where 50 is average, 55 is above average, and anything over 60 is considered great. And then they also break it down by current and then potential. So his hit grade is current 35, projected 50. His game power is 35, 55. His raw power is 55, 55. His speed is 40, 40. His fielding is 30, 40. And his EV, what is EV?
It's FV, isn't it?
It's
FV?
FV.
Oh,
It's
FV.
overall future value.
Future value is 45 out of 80, which is not quite average. Okay. So a couple interesting things here. Game power versus raw power. We were looking this up beforehand. Game power is in a game, how likely you are to be a power hitter in the game. And then raw power is essentially batting practice power, how far you can hit the ball, impact the baseball. Like Gary Sanchez probably had off the charts raw power.
Yeah. Well, I've also seen I think it's the same thing, game power, and I've also seen in a few different articles usable power. So this is one of those like, which website you check thing is, how consistently they'll tap into the raw power. So I think those are interchangeable, pretty close.
I think the big thing with him, though, is that he probably doesn't project to be a long-term catcher, more of a first base outfielder or DH type. There are comps to him with Schwarber, which, listen, if he turns into Kyle Schwarber offensively, Yankees will be happy about that. He's a lefty bat. Dylan Lawson, actually, minor league hitting coordinator, said, likely to progress through our minor league system super quickly. He's got some of the best bat speed in the organization.
Not the first time we've heard about bat speed being a thing.
Lightning fast. What did Brian Cashman call
fastest
Jackson Frazier's?
It was Clint Frazier when he was talking about him as the fastest hands in the East or something like that.
Yeah. Baseball America named Wells the best power in the Yankees system. But again, he's probably not going to be a long-term catcher. So
move him. So stop catching then.
Right. Move him to first base now. Right. Like
move him to left field now.
Well, but he's 23 years old, and if
he's an older prospect, and he was in Double-A, he's not far off. If his bat is ready to go, in theory, if he was in Double-A last year, he could in theory. But we've seen guys called. Greg Bird was called up from Double-A. We've seen guys make that transition from Double-A to the major leagues relatively quickly. So if this guy has actual, an actual hit tool that is, I love that word, hit tool, an actual hit tool that is going to be ready. And according to the pipeline, 2023 is on the table. Then move him to left field, start him there for the season, and see what he can do. Why not? Why would we not try to get a guy and see what we have with a deficiency in the major leagues? Our roster deficiency is in left field. We have a guy that has plus bat in the minors and very possible major league bat. And he's going to project to be away from catcher, possibly first base, corner outfield. Why not do it now? We have plenty of catchers on the defensive side. It's not a needed position, and he's not a defensive catcher. So just move him away from that spot.
Instead, he'll continue catching, and then in an emergency situation, they'll call him up, put him in left field, and he'll make 3 errors and ruin his career.
I think there's so much romanticizing about the offensive catcher, and it drives me nuts. The offensive catcher is like the sexiest thing in the world for any fan to think about, for any front office to think about, because it's rare, because it's a unicorn.
It's so valuable.
Fine, but stop chasing that value and actually be realistic for what the player is, and not put him in a position that's not going to give him long-term success, or at least give him a higher percentage of long-term success. Clearly, there are scouts. I've read many articles about this guy, not just this year, but moving up to this year and after he was drafted. Everybody says that he's probably going to project away from the catching position. So do it.
Yeah, your point about left field makes sense. I was thinking first base just because, again, Rizzo's on a shorter term deal anyway, so you could slot him in maybe to first base when Rizzo moves on. But yeah, I'm fine with giving him a shot in left field. Let him play. Start him every game in left field for the first half of the minor league season. And if you have a problem in left field, give him a shot in the second half, right? Like what? I don't know that he's the type of prospect that you're kicking yourself if you try this and it doesn't work, right? He's not gonna be so valuable as a prospect long term that if you mess him up, then you're screwing.
This isn't
yourself.
messing him up. This could help him because I don't think anybody sees
Certainly
him
help
as a
him
catcher.
get to the majors faster. Certainly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And isn't that what we're doing? Isn't that what the prospects are for? To get to the
But
major leagues
a lot
as
of
fast as
times-
possible when they're ready?
But a lot of times players, this happened with IKF. IKF caught to get to the major leagues faster. Players know that if you catch and you're decent, you can rise up through the system quicker because catching is so rare and you can actually get to the majors faster.
Very
That's
different
not the
scenario.
situation with the Yankees.
Very different scenario.
Not the situation with the Yankees.
Plus,
But-
Fortnite. I'll screw this guy's name up forever.
Fortnite
is in the system as well. They have 3 defensive catchers. Like he's not going to sniff the catching position for the next 2 years at least. So move him out of the position.
Yeah. But he does. He has more value to the Yankees if you move his position, meaning value on the field, but maybe potentially in the trade market, he has more value as a catcher.
Okay, what are we really talking about?
Not much. Number 5 prospect in the Yankee system is Everson Pereira. He's an outfielder, 21 years old, also ETA 2023. International signing out of Venezuela way back in 2017 when he was 16 years old. His scouting grades are 30, 40 in hit, 35, 60. Is that a 60? That's a 60 in game power, 55, 60 in raw power, 55, 55 in speed, 40, 45 fielding, and 45 plus in future value. He's a power bat, obviously. He does strike out a boatload. In the minor leagues, he struck out 26 plus percent, 30.1% in 2022 in AA. AA can be a big jump for guys. So his strikeouts are definitely an issue. He's got pretty good defense, speed, and arm, all graded above average in center field. But this is an outfield prospect. 2023 obviously is this year, and he's only 21 years old. But this is another guy that we could see as a left field option for the Yankees.
I remember talking about Everson Pereira in 2018 with Ben Badler of Baseball America, talking about this guy, and a lot of people were enamored by this guy and seeing the massive potential with him, and had to improve plate this. He was like 17 years old at that point. He's still 21 years old. MLB Pipeline has him as they pick out breakout players for each team. They got Pereira as that guy. Basically because he hasn't played sustained year, played 100 games. Pereira didn't play 100 games in a season until 2022 because of injury and the pandemic. So he's coming off some really good numbers. He's a 5-tool guy. Like he had 21 steals from high A to AA as well. So I think he's very interesting. And if that's that's another thing. It's like when you're looking at moving a guy position wise, talking about Wells here, you got to make sure that there's room to do that, and you're not blocking someone else's progress in the position. So that's the only tricky thing I think maybe with position wise. But he's someone that's very interesting, and another guy that if he could take a jump, like he's a highly touted guy, a lot of raw skills, and I think coming out of that. What was that? 17 international free class. Like he was one of the more highly touted guys coming out as far as raw talent.
The thing though, also with the Yankees, because he's 21 years old, they're not calling him up this year. I would be pretty surprised, barring catastrophic, issues in the outfield. Bader is a free agent after this season, so if the Yankees don't want to extend Bader for one reason, and Pereira has another good year in center field, that could be an option for 2024 center fielder.
I mean, look what happened last year. Cabrera and Peraza came up. They were up when a lot of people didn't expect them to come up, and they got significant time. So I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility for a lot of these some of these guys, if there are deficiencies in the major leagues, for them to come up. And there are 2 more significant guys chirping in Cashman's ear and chirping in everybody's ear about the minor leagues now that have very good track record of building systems and bringing guys up when they're ready. Would not be surprised if we saw some different looks from the Yankees front office in the way that they treated some of their prospects. Because you look across baseball, there are plenty of guys that are having success much earlier than they used to. So again, if there's a deficiency, if there's someone, if they don't fill this left field spot, trade deadline time, and right after the All-Star break or something like that, before the deadline, they want to get a look at a guy at the major leagues, wouldn't be surprised. Or if they didn't find the right thing in the in left field on the trade deadline, again, wouldn't be surprised if one of these guys were to come up.
I think you said this on a recent episode. More than ever, you can use the MLB regular season to develop some prospects because it's just not as important.
Well, it's also just a good place to develop for some of these guys because they're going to see more pitches. Like, frankly, if you give them, if they're able to get regular playing time, they will see more pitches in the major leagues than they will in the minors. It's just they will see more pitches across the middle of a plate because guys are going to want to attack these young guys that are an unknown rather than a commodity they know is a problem and one they have tape on. They're gonna be more careful with the veteran players that can do damage and absolutely attack the strike zone on some of these younger guys, which is going to give them more fastballs. It's going to give them more pitches across the plate. More and yes, it's a better pitch coming from a major league pitcher. But again, a strike is a strike. If you can get more of them, then that's going to bode better for you as to develop at the plate.
Yeah, service time is the argument against it.
Yeah.
Though. Trey Sweeney is the number 6 prospect in the Yankee system, shortstop, infielder. I think some scouts have said he could play third base. His ETA 2024, he was drafted in the first round of 2021. His scouting grades are 35-50 in hit, 35-55 game power, 55-60 in raw power, 40-40 speed, 30-50 fielding, and 45 future value. He's considered he's a lefty bat, and he's a bat first prospect, bat first, above average hit tool as an infielder. I think it also could be interesting. He's currently a shortstop, might not project long term as a shortstop. Move him to third base now.
Yeah, again, this is another one of those situations. Like, look at what the organization is telling you. The organization or the organizational depth is telling you they got two highly touted prospects at the shortstop spot. There's a significant block in front of him. Third base is one of those areas that they're going to need to either address via free agency or their minor league system. Let's see what he can do. Let's see what he can do now at third base. If they believe the bat projects well and could give the production that they need out of a third baseman, let's see what he can do.
So I guess a scout or someone, Ilya, you must have pulled this from somewhere. Someone wrote about him. Outstanding hand-eye coordination. There's not a professional baseball player who has ever walked this earth that does not have outstanding hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, but it's all
so
comparative.
His must be especially good. If out of all of the professional baseball players, you're like, wow, his hand-eye coordination is really good. It's like, writing about an NBA player. He's tall.
No, that's bullshit. Because the reason why they're saying that is because the pitch selection, they're able to identify pitch, and this is a huge knock for young players. Yes, of course they all have hand-eye coordination and they can hit a fastball, but can they also recognize that pitch being across the strike zone?
That's pitch recognition. That's not hand-eye coordination.
It absolutely is. It's there. What are you talking about? What do you think the eyes tell? Who tells the hands to swing? The eyes? Pretty sure it's the eyes. The eyes. We could go through the eyeballs are connected to the brain muscle.
Okay, so you're saying that pitch recognition or plate discipline,
yes,
could mean good hand-eye coordination.
I'm saying that yes, if you can recognize your hand-eye coordination, if you could recognize that a ball is outside the zone and that your hands and your eyes
not swing,
cannot make contact, this is not in my wheelhouse, then yes, it absolutely it affects it. And also, I wouldn't be surprised if we looked at the splits or some deeper numbers on this guy, that if the strikes, what are his numbers on balls over the plate? I bet they're significantly high, and that's what we're talking about.
Ilya just said in our chat, the one baseball player in history to not have good hand-eye coordination was Chris Carter.
That is very true, and
because he didn't open his eyes, so there's no coordination.
Joey Gallo.
I don't know.
No. There's no hand-eye coordination. He literally just swings in one plane. It doesn't matter. Hand-eye coordination means nothing. He just swings one thing. He just does one thing. If the pitcher hits his bat, that's how he makes contact and has power.
Number 7 prospect in the Yankee system is outfielder Spencer Jones, 21 years old, ETA 2025. Although there are some articles predicting an earlier ETA for him. He was drafted last year in the first round, 25th overall. His grades are 30-40 hit, 35-70 game power, 65-80 raw power, 40-40 speed, 30-50 fielding, 45 future value. I feel like everyone is a 45 future value, no matter what your other grades are. It's just like, yeah, he's going to be pretty good. So, I mean, the power here obviously is the highest we've seen. 70 in potential game power, 80 potential raw power, just hitting nukes in batting practice.
Yeah, he's an Aaron Judge clone, if that was possible. I didn't know that was possible, but when we saw him being drafted, you're like, this guy projects very similar to what Aaron Judge is. And not a bad thing to have to go through a minor league system in which Aaron Judge came up through and showed steady progress, with a player that's pretty much the same physique. So, and has a lot of comps. I know the numbers are in here for Judge and his splits and what they look like at the same time. And they're damn near identical, which is crazy. So the Yankees system has done this before. We've done this before. We've seen this. So let's see if we can do it again.
He's pretty skinny. 6'7", listed at 6'7", 225. To be 6'7", I mean, I guess I'm looking at some pictures of him. He doesn't look. I just think because like Judge is listed at 275 or whatever, so he's got 50 pounds on him. But
yeah, what was Judge when he was drafted?
Good question. I don't know. Probably about 225, but he's just.
There you go.
Thick now.
So if we're talking about one resolution as we're talking through here that we did not hit on and that I will add to the list is for the Yankees to be more position specific with their minor leagues. Let's actually use the minor leagues as an opportunity to showcase and identify talent within a position of need for the major league roster. How about we do that?
Yeah, because it isn't the adage like you're drafting talent in the draft. You draft talent,
sure,
and then you can always move position. Now, obviously, there's some positions you can't move, right? It's like you can't move. It's unlikely a pitcher is going to go to catcher or something, something crazy like that. But if you draft a really athletic guy and he's not working out at shortstop, move him to the outfield.
Especially if you have a deficiency in a position and one is bolstered. So and I understand you have to be ready, you have to build your system and be ready, but the shortstop position is very deep. And if you're an outfielder, like there's like, this guy's he doesn't project to be here this year at all. But if we're looking at him as an opportunity to go into next year, like let's move him along for that purpose.
Will Warren is the number 8 prospect in the Yankee system. He's a 23-year-old pitcher. He was drafted in the 8th round in 2021. And his scouting grades are his fastball are 55, curveball 50, slider 60, changeup 50. His control is 50, and his overall is 50. So pretty good grades there. He's a sinker, slider, changeup mix. He calls his sinker a one-seamer, apparently. I don't know that I've ever heard the one-seamer term before. I'm sure I have, but like, what does that mean? What does a one-seamer mean?
It means he uses one seam to throw the ball, not two seams.
But how do you just use one seam?
By putting your finger on one seam.
Yeah, but I know there's a cross seam grip, and then that's a four-seamer.
Yep, that's going across. He may just have one finger on it and calls it a one-seamer. Maybe it's just touching. I don't know. He
throws with one finger?
No, the pressure could be different, and the way that he has the action on the seams or where he puts the pressure on his fingers, or he just wants to be different. It's first of all, it's him calling it this. It's him calling it this. So he's just naming his pitch. That's different from anybody else. I appreciate that. He's thinking about the value of naming a pitch and standing out. It's marketing. Branding.
He's
building his brand.
One-seamer t-shirts.
Yeah.
I don't hate it, actually.
Yeah.
He's touched 97 miles an hour on the gun. He's a ground ball pitcher.
Love that.
And then scouts call him a middle reliever type. Don't love that.
Well, I mean, you look at his numbers, and the one thing you see from a lot of the minor league guys in the Yankee system is that they have good power. They don't find the zone as much. And when you look at him, he improved he actually did not improve. He went last year when he was with Hudson Valley. He was at 2.3 walks per nine, and went to Double-A. He was at 3.2 walks per nine, which makes sense because you're getting guys who probably have better hand-eye coordination and pitch recognition. But at the same time, that's a thing. Like if you're a middle reliever and you're walking 3 guys per nine, you're not a middle reliever. So,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
You're
like
not a major league pitcher.
But when you're looking at his numbers and the things that they like about him, a couple things that I'm looking at, which I really like. One, he's an older guy, so you see someone who maybe has some more maturity in that sense. Touching 97 on the fastball with a low 80s changeup, I love that. I love the split on that. So if they're saying there's decent fade on there and you can get that big of a gap between miles per hour, I think that's a plus thing. And the sweep on his slider, like, yeah, they call it wicked horizontal sweep. That sounds like a scout from the Boston area, but the guy has good tools. So we'll see how he projects. Obviously he's got to throw the ball over the plate more often. That's to me the biggest thing I'm seeing.
Slider considered a plus pitch, 3,000 plus RPMs when the average MLB slider is between 2,400 and 2,500, call it RPM.
That's significant. That feels significant.
Mm-hmm. All right, the last guy we'll talk about is Clayton Beeter. He's a pitcher, number 9 in the Yankees system, acquired from the Dodgers for Joey Gallo, and he was originally drafted in the second round of 2020. His scouting grades on his fastball are 60-60, slider 60-60, curveball 60-60, command 30-40, future value 45. I could be a scout, because everyone gets a 45. He had Tommy John surgery in college back in 2017, so out of the way early. That's good. Fastball, curveball, slider, pitch mix. Acquired from the Dodgers, as I said, which is good because I feel like the Dodgers can draft, and develop.
I think one of the bigger notes, Ilya is actually highlighting it right now. The tunneling, Ilya, if you want to talk about this for a minute, because I have a feeling you're more. But it's essentially the way that they create deception with their arm slot. They create this tunnel of deception so that the ball comes up to you faster, and the batter's eye just has less time to react. Ilya, hit that. I know there's some comps with the Florida Marlins guys.
Yeah, so it's basically tunneling your pitches. It's having the ball come out from the same spot, and the trajectory of the pitch, it's staying the same for a longer time, through to the plate. So it creates more deception, and they're also talking about how he has an overhand slot that allows him to do that.
Yeah, it's like those pitching ninja gifs when he does the overlay, and then the ball's basically the same until the last minute, and then the sinker goes this way, the slider goes the other way. It's like, as a major league hitter, how the fuck are you ever going to hit that when it's like that crazy of a difference? And that's a good thing, seeing him, like the early scouts, people talking about him, that the late movement on a pitch is something that I think translates. If you can get that in the minor leagues, that's something that translates very well into the major leagues. So those are the
walks are a problem for him as well. Just to put that out there. In 2022, I feel
like that's a problem for a lot of
pitching
prospect. Like you never. Who's the guy that came through the Yankee system? Pitcher that command was like his best attribute. But like
I know who you're talking about. But first of all, let me just be very clear on what I'm talking about here. In 18 games, 16 games started with the Dodgers last year in Double-A. He was walking 6 guys per nine. It's not, but he's also striking out 15.3 per nine. So he's one of these guys that is all or nothing essentially.
Well, when you've got like the elite talent, like a top end pitching prospect, that's you might find that, and where the command is a problem, the command needs to be worked on, mechanics need to be worked on, get more consistent. I don't know who the prospect was that like shot. He was like a no name. He was like a no name.
Chance. The hell was his name?
Was it Chance Adams? Because
Chance
Logan
Adams,
just put Chance Adams in the chat. It was Chance Adams?
Yes. Oh, he did. Yeah, I wasn't seeing that. Logan and I are on the same page. It was Chance Adams. He shot up through the minor leagues with really good numbers. I remember he had a lot of wins too. He's one of those guys in the minor leagues. And
because he just like he was in the zone and he had command, and it's like minor league hitters, it's just gonna pound the ball into the ground if you're throwing a sinker on the black.
Well, also if you have good pitch selection and you're able to mix it up and you could throw straight. There's a lot of guys who don't have the miles per hour behind them, but can pitch. Like those are. I mean, look at what we're seeing right now. if you're able to pitch at the major league level and not just have massively high velocity, there's a lefty in our rotation that fits that bill.
So those are the prospects. Hope you guys, learned a thing or two about these guys. I know I did just going through this stuff. Last thing I want to talk about, I got like an annoyance with MLB, and I get it. It's a dead time. They need to get clicks onto their websites, but they're just clickbait. It's just at this point, MLB is just sending clickbait garbage into my email box, and I fell for it. So the article that was sent the other day, I think it was yesterday, actually, let's predict the next 10 World Series winners. I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. What's this going to be? The next 10 World Series winners? Sure. The Yankees are on here twice, but it's next year it's the Dodgers over the Blue Jays.
Hold on. Before you get to what the predictions are, the best part of the entire article is, by the way, I didn't predict the last two correctly, but let's do this anyway.
No, but it's an impossible thing.
Of
so
course
I know
it
it's
is.
I know it's not serious because
he has the Reds in there. Yeah, you're right.
Because you can't make this legitimately serious, but it should be based in some reality, I would think, right? So it's the Dodgers over the Blue Jays in 2023. That could definitely happen. Then it's the Mets over the Orioles in 2024. Okay, I guess the Orioles are just going to they did make a big jump last year, but like the next 2 years the Orioles are just going to be a massive problem. And then in 2025,
a massive problem. You mean for everybody else? Is that what you're saying?
Uh-huh.
Okay, yeah,
massive problem.
They have a lot of
the
young
AL
talent,
East.
and when you look at all of the scouts talking about the top arms that are coming up, you see a good amount of Orioles on there.
Then 2025, Giants over the Yankees. You know who I think, this is what he wrote, Will Leach. You know who I think will be playing for the Giants in 2025? That's right. It's Juan Soto time. It may take a couple years, but the Giants will finally get their superstar once Soto's contract expires, and the smart, savvy moves this organization is now known for will finally put together the full team it's been trying to build for a couple years now. After a couple of frustrating years of falling just short with the Padres, Soto leads the resurgent Giants all the way. They beat the Yankees, a surprise entrant that finished 84-78 in the regular season, but got hot in the playoffs in the World Series, despite Aaron Judge missing the end of the season with injuries for the third consecutive season. So this guy, Will Leach,
is an Orioles fan.
Predicting that Judge is going to finish the next 3 seasons on the IL.
You're just an asshole. You're just an asshole at the end of the day. Like, honestly, you read this whole thing. Clearly, this guy does not like the Yankees. Clearly, he's an Oriole. He leans towards the Orioles. So I don't know if he's an Orioles fan or whatnot, and he's just being influenced by.
I don't care if he's an Orioles.
No, I don't
fan.
care either. Like, but don't project it in your dumb article, and then predict Aaron Judge is going to be injured for 3 years.
Right. That's the problem I had.
You're just an asshole.
Just predicting the injury.
And stop putting the Reds in the World Series.
What's this? Not for like another decade.
Fine.
The 2026 Mariners over the Cardinals. So the Mariners are finally going to get their World Series. They're finally going to make the playoffs, even though they were in the playoffs last year. 2027 Yankees over the Cubs. The Yankees, they're back. A century after putting together perhaps the greatest baseball team of all time in their murderer's row, the Yankees, after missing the playoffs the previous season and making fans claw their eyeballs out, stunned the world by winning their 28th championship. Anthony Volpe is the World Series MVP, though it's the homer by recent free agent signing Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at Wrigley Field that seals this series over a plucky Cubs team. So how old is Vlad Jr. going to be in 2027? Also, Anthony Volpe, good enough to be the World Series MVP in 2027, but not mentioned on the 2025 Yankees that I guess finished 84-78. Judge was out. Anthony Volpe wasn't doing anything on that team to help them win.
Well, he was.
But
He was the one, but that's just the only thing that was notable was that Judge was not there.
2 years later, you got Volpe winning World Series MVP and Vlad Jr. probably like 38 years old at that point, hitting dingers for the Yankees.
Yeah.
The next one.
Don't waste your time.
Over the Dodgers.
Don't waste your time, people. It's crazy.
All right, that's all I wanted to talk about with the stupid clickbait from them.
I mean, I have problems with some of the projections from all of the nerds, but at least they're trying to put a spreadsheet together. This is just random bullshit.
Oh, and then as Ilya was going through all the prospect research, he came across an MLB.com article where front office was talking about, front offices were talking about the most overrated prospects. Okay. If that's not like the most MLB anti-player association thing of all time, let's publish an article on our MLB.com property talking about our overrated players.
Who are they?
Volpe was number 2.
Yes, that's what I thought was, which is wild because he's also, what is he, number 5 overall right now?
Yeah, and overrated doesn't necessarily mean bad, right? That whole argument, overrated, underrated. Just because you're underrated doesn't mean you're an elite player. It's just like you're underrated. So fine, but
aren't you rated? Aren't you kind of rated properly as a guy in the major leagues, or I'm sorry, as a prospect coming up, because you're showing what you can do. It's not like it's just hype. Like you're seeing what this enough person can do. Yeah, so it shouldn't be necessarily under or overrated. Like you're right. Judging off of performance.
It's not one person in the entire world ranking these prospects, right? There's a bunch of different input.
Right.
And so collectively you should get positive opinions on a guy, negative opinions on a guy, neutral opinions on a guy, that all boil down to Anthony Volpe being a top 10 Major League Baseball
I don't know
prospect.
how you can underrate one of these guys that have been just putting, numbers down on paper, and you're looking at what you see. I don't know. It doesn't make sense for me.
The most bizarre part about it is that in the same exact article, the same exact front office execs voted Volpe as the number 1 prospect for best baseball IQ, and he got votes for the best hit tool. Okay. But he's also the second most overrated.
So I guess
who was the most overrated?
IQ is overrated.
Henry Davis, the catcher from the Pirates, was the number 1 overrated prospect.
Well, he's the Pirate until he gets traded to another team, and then he's the number 1 underrated prospect.
All right, that's going to wrap up today's show. Well, we didn't touch on a couple of other things. We might do Zips projections next week. Maybe Carlos Correa will sign with a different team, and we can talk about that.
International free agent signing happens on the 15th, so that's something to look at. See who the Yankees are. Who will we be talking about in these projections in 5 years from the signings that start on Sunday.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back at you next week.